Hello folks, this is Sula once again. Welcome to another video for Teamfight Tactics. This is a video taken from the most recent patch, and it's going to be looking at a team comp that I saw someone running on live stream, and I was like, that's a really clever build. I want to try this for myself. And that is a team comp that's based on using Varus as a support unit, not as, he actually is a damage dealer, but he does it in a supportive way, and then building his team comp around skirmishers. Well, a mixture of skirmishers and redeemed units, but it sounds cooler to say the skirmishers part, and that's kind of the novel part of this team composition. So we end up with a team composition that's made up of 3 skirmishers, 3 redeemed, and then a bunch of mystic units. So yeah, it's a really clever setup, and we're going to talk about how this works as the match goes on, but we have to get to the point where some of these units are in play, and then we'll kind of talk about how this works. But it's based on taking Varus's ultimate, which is Hail of Arrows or Holy Arrows, and which is both kind of an ability that deals damage and then also buffs allied units that happen to be in the target area, and then kind of bases the whole team composition around being really tanky and then using Varus's arrows to empower the rest of the team, and relying on skirmishers who get attack damage and get the extra shields at the start of combat. This patch generally didn't have huge changes to the metagame. One of the biggest criticisms that I've had of Set 5 has been that it feels like we've been on a merry-go-round in terms of the items that we've been getting, or not the items, in terms of like the balance from patch to patch. First, like there's one team composition that's strong, and then the next patch comes out and everything is completely flipped and it's a completely different metagame, and then 7 days go by and there's a B patch and then something else is completely different, and so on and so forth. And there's just been very little stability from patch to patch, which I guess is fine for the people who are like live stream this for their income, and they play 10 games a day. They, for them it's probably not bad that everything changes every 7 days, but like for everybody else who might play like maybe like, I don't know, 5 games a week, 10 games a week, it's just been really hard keeping track of everything that's been going on. So this patch, the fact that it didn't cause 10 million changes, kind of a nice thing to have for a change. Anyway, so what's going on in the match so far? I went ahead and took a glove off the starting carousel because you need multiple gloves to make this team composition work. I get a second glove from the minion round, and then I get a rod, and that's nice because one of the key items that you need to make this work is a jeweled gauntlet. The preferred version is the shadow version of the jeweled gauntlet, just because it has a little bit higher critical strike chance, but the normal version works pretty well. It's a little not quite as good, but it works reasonably well. And I tossed this on Syndra because I have not found a Varus yet, and she's a decent holder for these items. So I basically need someone to hold on to these items until I can find Varus and put him in the team composition. And so that's just kind of the plan there. We're running Redeemed right now. If I had found early Skirmishers, I could also play early Skirmishers here and actually almost win that round, which is kind of surprising to me because I didn't feel like what I had was very good. I had 4 1-star units here. I get a tougher choice here on the second, or on the initial armory, the stage 2 armory, and I take the shadow tier because I really would like to make a very dark blue buff down the road. I think that would be nice to have. So I also get some other interesting hits here. I find an early Lux, and I was like, okay, I'll play the Lux. I'll take the Leona out. I don't really need more frontline right now. And then I realized, well, wait a minute, why would I play the Udyr? He's not going to do anything. I'm holding on to Udyr because I'm going to look to put in Skirmishers later, and he doesn't cost much gold to hold on to him. But I was like, wait a minute, why would I play him? I'll just play the Leona, so I have 4 redeemed. That way every unit's getting the bonus. But yeah, so like I said, I've run this team comp a couple times in other matches, and you can kind of run Redeemed early game, you can run Skirmishers early game. You're going to be playing a mixture of Redeemed and Skirmishers, so whichever one you're hitting is kind of the way to go. And obviously I've been hitting Redeemed. I already have 4 redeemed units. So far, not too much out of the ordinary. This looks pretty standard. This could be the beginning to like a 6 redeemed Vel'Koz game. Doesn't really look too much out of the ordinary there. I was a little disappointed with this round because all of my units decided to hit the Trundle on the other team, by far the tankiest member, who also has the Redemption healing him every couple seconds. So we don't kill any units, which is a little bit unfortunate in terms of fight RNG. But on the plus side, that does mean that I will get increased carousel priority, and that's not necessarily the worst thing. What I'd really be looking for off the carousel would be a shadow bow. I would love to get a shadow bow because that would allow me to make the shadow version of Last Whisper. And the shadow version of Last Whisper is the most difficult item to get to make this team comp come together, because you need either a shadow bow or a shadow glove. and getting them is not the easiest thing in the world to do. So that's kind of the key item that you're looking for is the shadow version of Last Whisper. And then other than that, you can kind of use some different stuff, but you really want the shadow version of Last Whisper if possible. The normal version of Last Whisper works okay, but is not. It definitely is not as good for this setup. You really want the shadow version of Last Whisper, which shreds both the armor and the magic resistance of the units getting hit on the other team. Excuse me. Now, as far as this fight goes, I know I'm never going to kill the Warwick, so I'm just hoping that I can kill the other units to take a little bit less damage here in the fight. Warwick with the 2-star Warwick with early Shadow Gargoyle Stoneplate. No, normal Gargoyle Stoneplate. And then the Archangel Staff. Like, I'm definitely not killing that unit. So we are going to lose this, but it's not going to be a bad loss. I'm only going to take 2 damage, so I'm okay with that. I don't need higher carousel priority. I already have the highest carousel priority. Here, I'm looking at here and I was like, oh, there's a bow, but it's not a shadow bow. So that's a bit unfortunate. But I figure, the other item I've got is this. I've got a tier or a shadow tier. There's another tier on a 3-cost Nunu. So I figure that will be useful. I can make an early shadow blue buff and I'll just stick that on somebody. Maybe even on Syndra. I can just have her use the item for the time being. But I want to make a dark blue buff, the shadow version of blue buff. And I'm going to want that later on for my team comp because I'm going to be looking to play Rise, and this is a really good item to play on Rise. So I figure I might as well get that right now. And then, I find a Varus. Otherwise, I would have just made the very dark blue buff on Syndra, but I don't actually want that item on. I don't actually want that item on Varus. I want the very dark blue buff to go on a future Rise. So I'll put the glove and the Jeweled Gauntlet on Varus. And then who can hold very dark blue buff? Well, I want it to be on a unit that's going to come out of the team comp. Maybe that could be the Aatrox up in the front lines, but it's actually a pretty good item on Udyr just because Udyr only has 40 mana. So if he drops below half health or 60% health, whatever the threshold is for the very dark blue buff to trigger, he will just be able to cast again and again and again. I think he has to auto 1 time between casts, but overall works pretty well. Unfortunately, in this fight, he just got popped instantly by the Ziggs, who's got an Archangel Staff and the Jeweled Gauntlet. So it didn't work in this fight, but looks like it'll be useful in other fights. Yeah, so we're going to end up losing this fight, but again, not a bad loss. It's actually probably the best thing I can have is to have a close loss. No, actually, we're not going to lose. Haha, Lux at the tail end of the fight. It can be surprising how much damage Lux will do sometimes with her auto attacks. Something that's easy to miss with Lux, people are like, oh, Lux is a support unit. She tosses out the shields. After she tosses her shield, her next auto attack is empowered, deals bonus magic damage. And if she is the only redeemed unit left alive, sometimes that can be pretty significant. So I'm going to reposition here, get down here in the corner for a little bit more protection, and just look to play out of here. So it probably would have been better if I'd lost that round, in all honesty, but oh well. I mean, I never really feel bad about winning rounds, because, health is an important resource in this game, and you would prefer not to lose it. All right, so here Udyr gets low. Unfortunately, again, still not really able to use the very dark blue buff. Probably needs the Skirmishers, probably needs to have Skirmisher straight in if he's going to survive that. So can we win this fight? Well, if we can kill the Nocturne before his Rage Blade ramps up too much, yes, actually. And once again, having 1 redeemed unit left alive means a whole lot of extra armor and MR, and Aatrox is able to clutch it out, and we win the fight. I'll sell the 2 Aatroxes on the bench to get to 20 gold, and this is looking pretty good. So 86 health, not bad for this stage of the game. On a modest win streak, economy's in pretty good shape, 28 gold. Going into the minion round at level 5. All right, so like I said, again, up to this point in time, really hasn't looked much different from like your standard redeemed game going into a future version of like Vel'Koz, except you probably would have tried to get like a Shojin for Vel'Koz instead of making a very dark blue buff. You'd probably be looking to make like Spear Shojin, but it's going to start to diverge from here because I'm going to look to start to find Skirmishers. I've actually had pretty lousy luck finding Skirmishers thus far, and I should start finding some of them soon. So I'll look to go to 6, not here on stage 3-1, but on stage 3-2, which is kind of the standard timing. We do hit 2-star Udyr, so that's nice. I'm holding on to the Morg right now because Morgana could be the next unit in. She would get Mystic in play, but she's not really a core unit to this comp. The reason why you don't see Morgana a lot in this particular team comp is it doesn't need more frontline. The Skirmishers provide frontline, so any Mystic units you put in you more want Mystic units that are going to provide utility to the team. Lux shields, Lulu with the attack speed up, Rise with his crowd control. Morgana is, of course, does have crowd control as well, but she's more of a frontline unit, and this comp does not need more frontline units. It's going to have Skirmishers for the front line. For right now, that's Udyr, but later on, that's going to be Trundle, it's going to be Pantheon, and eventually Jax, if we can find him down the road. All right, so in this fight, we're going to get more value out of that very dark blue buff. Note that Udyr goes down to like 5 health, but then just keeps casting again and again and again, gets that shield off repeatedly, and yeah, that's going to be enough to win this round. Way to go, Udyr. Very dark blue buff for the win, getting off those extra spell casts. So here on the armory, I was like, oh my god, Shadow Bow. That's exactly what I need. So now I'm able to make the Shadow Last Whisper, and that's really, really lucky. So I'm happy to take that. Now I'm going to go to level 6, and I'll roll just a little bit. And I was like, oh, that's enough to get 3 Skirmishers in. So let's see if we can do that, shall we? I actually have an extra redeemed unit, so something comes out. It's going to be Leona. So we'll go ahead and play the Lee Sin. I'm going to hold onto the Leonas because I would prefer to play Leona over Aatrox, but and I'll sell the Morgana to get back up to 30 gold. I thought that was enough to stabilize here, but then I was like, we'll roll a little bit more. There's more Udyrs, but I don't really want the Udyrs. But I roll enough to hit 2-star Pantheon, or not Pantheon, 2-star Trundle. I haven't found Pantheon yet, and that's a big deal because getting 2-star Trundle really will help out a lot. Now we have a pretty legitimate first front line here. We've got the Udyr with the dark blue. We've got a Trundle, and we've got the Aatrox. They're all 2-starred. Now this is really easy because we're up against the player who's apparently disconnected from the game, but now our front line's pretty beefy, and then that's going to allow us to start making this comp work. So let me talk a bit about how this comp works in more detail. So Varus, it all goes back to how Varus's ultimate works. I know I've been doing some Varus videos recently, but I'm just going to read his ability description again. Holy arrows, Varus fires a hail of arrows around his target, deals percent of his attack damage as physical damage. Now that's not the significant part of how this comp works. It's not about physical damage on Varus. Varus and his allies within the area are blessed, causing them to deal bonus magic damage with their attacks for 6 seconds. So when Varus fires his ult, he puts that little consecrated ground down, and any allies within the area, as well as Varus himself, even if he doesn't hit himself, he also gets blessed. Their auto attacks deal bonus magic damage for the next 6 seconds. And at 1-star, it's 40 bonus magic damage. At 2-star, it's 60 bonus magic damage. Goes up to 90 if you can 3-star the unit, but that's a little bit trickier. All right, so the idea behind this comp is you have Skirmishers on the front line. The Skirmishers are going to run up and start slapping the enemy team. They're going to be very tanky. Varus will get his ult off, and he will bless everybody in the area. So watch, he's about to fire, and he trolls his ult. Doesn't hit the units. Now, normally it's random who he hits with his ult, but normally he'll do that. He'll just cast right into the middle of like the front line. He'll bless all the units. And then for the next 6 seconds, they're doing bonus magic damage on their auto attacks. So again, pretty standard up to this point, but the itemization is what makes it work. Note that I have the, I've got the Shadow version of Last Whisper. Shadow version of Last Whisper will shred armor and magic resistance of the targets. I believe it's whenever the unit critically strikes, they get armor and magic resist shred. Just on this carousel, I'm going to take the Shadow Chain Vest because I had that rod sitting on my bench, and I was like, cool, this will make Shadow Locket, which was nerfed in this patch, but it's still a really, really good item for frontliners, and I'm going to have a lot of frontliners in this team comp. All right, so getting back to the previous discussion, Last Whisper. The Shadow version of Last Whisper is whenever the holder inflicts a critical hit, the target's armor and magic resistance are reduced by 70% for 5 seconds. And then the holder has their armor and MR permanently reduced by 25%, but that doesn't really matter that much. Varus is not a tank. If he's getting hit, he's just going to die, so that doesn't really matter. All right, so because Varus has a Shadow Last Whisper, whenever he inflicts a critical hit, he'll shred armor and MR on the target. So in addition to that, Varus also has a Jeweled Gauntlet, which means that not only do his auto attacks crit, his spells can also crit. So what that means is when he casts his ultimate into a big clump of enemy units, he can crit and therefore trigger the Shadow Last Whisper's armor and magic resist shred just by casting his ultimate. So he's going to, and like you actually see that happen right here, he's got the Kennen had the armor and MR shred. So he's going to fire his ultimate into like a big mass of enemy units. He's going to bless all my units so they deal bonus magic damage. And he also has like 40% odds to shred the armor and magic resistance of the enemy units. So their armor and MR are going to go poof, disappear, and he is going to be able to do that both with his auto attacks and with his spell cast. So that's why you want these two items, the Shadowless Whisper, Armor and MR Shred. It's important to shred both because the Skirmishers will do physical damage. Remember, Skirmisher trait increases physical damage throughout the fight. They're gonna ramp up as the fight goes on. They're gonna do more and more physical damage, and then they're gonna keep getting blessed with Varus's ultimate and deal magic damage as well, while Varus simultaneously shreds their armor and MR. It's just like the synergy here is pretty amazing. So again, Varus is the key focus for this team composition, but he's kind of doing it in a supportive way. It's really kind of neat how this works. Like I said, I wish I could claim that I was the person doing this, but I just saw someone else playing it on stream. And I know that this has been around for a while. I've seen that Varus's most recommended items are his top recommended items have been the Shadowless Whisper and the Jeweled Gauntlet for some time now, but I haven't seen someone kind of pair this together with a Skirmisher / Redeemed team comp before. So it really is pretty interesting the way this works. And like I was watching this on stream and I'm like, this comp, why is this comp like winning? This isn't a particularly strong, like this does not look like a very strong setup here. Like 3 Skirmisher, 3 Redeemed, like what's going on there? That doesn't feel like it should work, but with the right itemization, it really does work. And you might have noticed I'm on a 7-match winning streak as soon as I was able to get the Varus into the team comp, and especially since I was able to make the Shadowless Whisper on Varus. I've just been win streaking super duper hard. And so from here, it's just a smooth and easy path into upgrading into higher tier units as the battle goes on. I'm actually a little disappointed. I actually kind of want more tank units here, or tank items, excuse me. I've actually been a little unlucky to get more like attack damage focused items, which I don't really need for this team composition. But I'm able to roll here. I hit the 2-star Varus, and I think when I hit 2-star Varus, I'm like, let's roll a little bit more. Like we'll roll down to 50, but I don't think we have to roll too much. I think we can just stop here. I do make a mistake, though. I should pick up the Varus. It's always worthwhile trying to 3-star the Varus just because that increases the power of the team so much. So I should pick up the Varus. I have the money to afford it, but instead I do not opt to pick up the Varus. And I should just stack them and hold on to them. The odds of hitting the 3-star version are not super high, and it's definitely not worth it to stop leveling to try and hit the 3-star version. But just on the off chance that I'll see more of these units, especially because I have a Nico sitting there on the bench, it's worthwhile to pick this up just on the, like I said, just on the off chance that it would happen. All right, so Varus, once again, gets low, does not quite die, though, and looks like we're good here. So looks like we're pretty solid. We're able to win another round and run that win streak out to 8 matches. So I'm super rich. I'm sitting at 50 gold in the bank on this super long winning streak. So I'm very wealthy, and I'm going to use this now to try to push levels and just keep getting stronger. So I've got a choice of different items here. I would normally probably take the Skirmisher emblem. I actually have another very dark blue buff, but I'm going to take the Spear of Shojin, the shadow version of Spear of Shojin here, and put it on Varus. Now, normally you don't want a Shadow Spear of Shojin. You'd prefer to have the normal Spear of Shojin because the Shadow version does reduce the damage that Varus does somewhat. I don't know quite how that interacts with his Jeweled Gauntlet and his Shadowless Whisper, but I believe it does cut his damage by the 15%. Still, I had no tiers. I didn't want to take the chance that I would be unable to get a tier. Remember, I'm going to be last priority on this next carousel. The odds I can get a tier to pair with this sword for a normal Shojin are kind of low. So I just take the Shadow Spear of Shojin. It's not as good as the normal Shojin, but it works enough. So that's kind of the setup that you want here. You want the you want a Spear of Shojin on Varus, so he casts more often. And remember, the whole point here is Varus it's not about his auto attacks, it's about his spell casting. So you want him to cast more often. With the Shadow Spear of Shojin, he will cast much more often. In fact, he casts often enough, he can more or less perma-bless the units on the front line. So they're always doing that bonus magic damage on their auto attacks. And oddly, the bonus magic damage that they do seems to show up on Varus's damage chart here. It's kind of weird how that works. But like you see Varus doing like, I don't know, 4,000 magic damage or something. Well, he's not doing that. It's counting the extra magic damage that he's putting on the other unit's auto attacks. So these damage charts look a little bit weird, but that's my understanding of how it's functioning. In addition to that, we notice that we're also running Pantheon in addition to the Trundle, and that's, of course, to get Dragon Slayer in play. These are good frontline units. They're very tanky. They'll survive for a while. They'll keep getting stronger in the fight with the Skirmisher, and they'll also pick up the extra bonus magic damage from Varus' ultimate, and they also put Dragon Slayer into the team, so everybody's getting that bonus ability power if they're able to get, a kill or an assist to get the the Dragon Slayer, what is it? After the first Dragon Slayer ally scores a takedown on an enemy with at least 1400 maximum health, all allies gain additional ability power for the rest of the round. So that's kind of how it works. It's not going to do a ton, but it's going to help. So I'd love to win this particular round as well, but look at the Kennen in this fight. The Kennen is sitting right on top of the Varus, and it's not actually the Shadow Morello that's a problem. Shadow Morello is actually bugged in this. This was played on the very first day of the patch. They'll probably fix this, but Shadow Morello is bugged. It only ticks one time, so don't make it until this bug has been fixed. Maybe it's been fixed by the time you're watching this video, but it was bugged here on the first day of the patch. The real issue in that fight was not the Shadow Morellos, it was the Shadow Frozen Heart that was slowing Varus's attack speed, so that meant he wasn't able to get his ult off, wasn't able to keep blessing units on the other side. And ultimately it meant that we were unable to win that fight and finally take a loss. So, well. I will go ahead and take the what is this? The chain vest here. And the logic was I want to make a guardian angel because I want to put this on Rise. I kind of have the Udyr holding Rise items right now. I belatedly find 2-star Leona, like very late. I was like, okay. But we're going to hit other stuff. We hit 2-star Pantheon. Now I'm really just looking for Rise. And I also would like to find Jax as well. Oh, and well, I guess there's more stuff here. I also would like to find Rel, because Rel would give me the possibility of getting Ironclad in if I can find Jax. Like I would replace the Leona with Rel. The Udyr items, the Shadow Locket would go to probably Pantheon, either Pantheon or Trundle. The Shadow Blue will go to Rise if I can find Rise. So my comp can definitely get stronger. I just randomly find a Volibear, so I toss that in, although it doesn't look like he's going to get his ult off. Oh, Lux Shield on the Volibear? No, still unable to get his ult off. And that's why you don't really want to play Volibear if you don't have Revenant in, which I'm not running in this game. So I just tossed him in there. I guess he soaked up damage for a little bit, and we're able to win this round and maybe start a new win streak. But I really should just make the Guardian Angel here because I'm going to want blue buff plus Guardian Angel for Rise. Not as good as the Shadow version of Guardian Angel on Rise, but still good. Aha, there is the Rel. So do we want to go ahead and make this replacement? And yes, we do, because Rel is a lot better. Like, much better. And I'll go ahead and put Morgana in as well, just because that gets me another level of Mystic. So there we go. Of course, the Mystic I really want is Kindred, and that's one of the key units for this team comp because Kindred both gets you a level of Mystic and also gets you Ranger trait in play. The attack speed from Ranger, not really that significant. So that's one of the big ways this differs from like the 4 Ranger Varus comp that I put some other videos up on. You don't really need Ranger in. Ranger's just something you splash in at the end of the game. And here I'm tossing this Guardian Angel onto the Udyr so that it can go on to a Rise later. But like you don't really need a lot of attack speed. You notice I have no attack speed items on Varus, and I'm not prioritizing getting Ranger trait in. It's because Varus is a spellcaster in this comp. He's not an auto attacker. He's a spellcaster. It's all about just getting those spellcasts off as quickly as possible. So you might have noticed that the Vlad looked like he was never going to die. It was like, well, wait a minute, what happened to Vlad? Well, Varus got his armor and MR shred, and then suddenly he just died instantly. Maybe not instantly, but he died very quickly once Varus was able to get the armor and MR shred. And then all the skirmishers who were still alive, who'd had their AD ramping up throughout the whole fight, just suddenly burst him down and turned him into a pincushion. So again, I'm feeling pretty good at this stage of the game. 77 health at the end of stage 4. I got a lot of gold. I do need to roll a little bit more here on 8. I want to find Jax and I want to find Rise. And if I can find those 2 units, then I'll be content to go up to level 9 from there. I should have enough gold to get to level 9 in this match because my mid game was like really, really strong in this one. And then I've still got that Nico's help that I can use on somebody down the road. So, all right, we're going to get 3 more item components. And now we want to roll. There's the Jax. Excellent. So now I just need to find Rise. And then I can feel comfortable in taking that very dark blue buff off of the Udyr. Rise, the Jax will get Ironclad into the comp, so I definitely want to put him in. And of course, he's another good source of damage. There's another Rel. Again, I should be picking up these Varuses. There's no reason not to pick them up. I'd be getting closer to 3-star. Although, of course, maybe I wouldn't find them because I'd be taking them out of the pool, but you get the idea. So again, it's just unfortunate I was not able to find 1 Rise, but I'll go ahead and make that switch because I've got 2-star Jax, which is a big deal. So we'll go ahead and put that in. Now I've got tank items. I want to put tank items on probably Pantheon. So out of these items, I go ahead and make the Ionic Spark. And then I've just got this leftover Giant's Belt. So I have to decide what to do with that. And then I've still got this very dark blue buff, which really isn't going to work very well on anyone except Rise. But we'll see what we can do. if we could probably just want to keep rolling until I can find at least one rise. I don't necessarily need to get a 2-star version, although I'll want that eventually. Right now, I just want to get the rise. This fight's very close, but unfortunately come up a little bit short. Feel like having a rise in there. Feel like having the dark blue buff and the Guardian Angel being left unused was probably the difference in that fight. By the way, getting a lot of Jaxes. Maybe I should just stack Jaxes here. Darius would be useful, but there's not really a good way to get him in the comp unless you can get a Skirmisher spatula. More Jaxes. It's like, can I get one rise? I know he's popular in Forgotten comps. Ah, there we go. All right, so now we just replace the Morgana with him, keeping the 3 Mystic, and now we'll itemize the rise, toss those in, and then I just was like, all right, I guess I'll just put this Giant's Belt on Pantheon. Why not? Make him tankier. It's just going to be left as a dead component because you don't get item components at this point, but hey, it's better to have that extra health than not have it. All right, so this is what our comp looks like right now. We've kind of hit, now we're feeling strong enough to look to try to go up to level 9. So Rise with the very dark blue buff, I think this is pretty well known that this is a really ridiculous synergy for this particular unit. Rise is exactly 50 mana. The very dark blue buff means if he's under half health, he gets 50 mana back immediately after spellcasting. I really think that there's the problem with this item they really should probably just rework very dark blue buff so it doesn't have this synergy. Rise actually got nerfed in this patch so that he doesn't stun quite as many people, but he still kind of stuns enemies. He just doesn't stun them to quite the same extent. Again, more units here. I could pick up units trying to get towards 3-star, but I still am more interested in pushing towards level 9. Level 9 gives me a chance to find Kindred, and Kindred's a huge spike for this comp. Like I said, 4 Mystic plus 2 Ranger. Get much, much, much stronger if we can get there. So just looking to econ up to 9 right now. Feeling pretty strong. I think I'm stronger than most of these other comps. I haven't done a ton of scouting because I hadn't played this comp a lot. I was having to think a bit more about how to play it. But this is kind of the setup right now. I would probably frontline the Pantheon and the Rel. I would probably put them more up front if I didn't have the Shadow Locket. But because I have the Shadow Locket, I want to make sure I'm getting full value from that. All right, so once again, we need to get the armor and MR shred on the Vlad. Let's see if we can do that. Have not been able to do that the last couple spellcasts. Fortunately, Varus spellcast nonstop. And we do have a healing debuff on him, thanks to Pantheon. Thank you very much, Pantheon, for making it so Vlad has the healing debuff on him. And I don't know if we ever actually did get the armor and MR shred on Vlad that time, but it looks like we didn't really need it because we might have just outscaled that Vlad composition. Looks like there's one other strong comp in this lobby, Shut Up Kyle, who's running, I believe, a Forgotten team composition. Here on the carousel, I was actually disappointed now that I had gone ahead and slapped the the belt on the Pantheon because I'd really like to get the Warmogs would be just awesome, but I can't put it on him because I already used up that last item slot. Also, I take the Dragon's Claw, which would also be fantastic on Pantheon, but can't do it because I put that belt on him. I was like, probably should have put the belt on the Rel. Oh well. So I'm going to look to put it on Jax instead, and hopefully that'll keep him alive a little bit longer in these fights. But I would have rather had it on Pantheon. Anyway, that's kind of the itemization for this team comp is you want the items I've been discussing on Varus. The hardest one to get is that Shadow version of the Last Whisper, then either normal Jeweled Gauntlet or Shadow Jeweled Gauntlet, and then preferably a Spear of Shojin so he casts more often. Shadow Spear works okay, as I've seen here, but you want one of those items so he has more mana generation. I guess you could run blue buff as well, but his mana costs are high enough that the Spear of Shojin is generally a good bit better. And then it's tank items on Pantheon, and that's kind of it. If you get like a dark blue buff, is great on Rise if you can land it. Otherwise, I guess if you get AD items, you can look to put them on Jax or whatever, but that's not really the focus on the comp. The focus on the comp is more being tanky. It's a little bit like the Kale stall comps that were popular that you used to see, and I guess you still see occasionally, because you're kind of like just stalling and trying to get as tanky as possible so that the bonus magic damage and the armor shred from Varus does its thing. But we're getting closer to the end stages of this match because there's not a lot of people left. And then I get lucky there, and there's 2 Rises on sale. So I was like, great, there we go. So I have Rise up on the front line because I want his dark blue buff to kick in. Very dark blue buff, the Shadow version. And with the Guardian Angel, he's not even likely to die. Like if you can get the Guardian Angel plus dark blue buff or Shadow dark blue buff, whatever the item's called, then it's better to frontline Rise than to have him in the back. Like, I want him taking damage. I want him to start perma-stunning the enemy team by having that Shadow blue buff trigger. and give him back 50 mana constantly. I mean, if he hits 0 health, he'll just come back to life again. So, like I said, not as good as the Shadow version of Guardian Angel, but still pretty good stuff. All right, we're up against this. What is this? The Hellions team composition, and this comp has 3-starred a lot of units, which is a bit unfortunate. But if we can win, we can knock this player out. So is there any way we can do that? Well, Varus is still alive in the backlines, and even though that Ziggs does a ton of damage with every cast, he only casts every now and then. Like, the Ziggs is single target damage, so we're able to knock this player out, and Hellion reroll is not going to be a thing in this match any longer. So there we go. And now I get another tank item. I get a normal locket, not a shadow locket. And I was like, oh man, you see me highlighting the giant spell. I was like, that I could have put the Dragon's Talon or Dragon's Claw on him. I could have put this other locket on it. Now I'm gonna have to put the locket in kind of a weird spot, and we're not gonna get full value out of it. But we'll get okay value. It's just at this stage of the game, locket's not that great of an item. Locket's more of an early game item than a late game item. So, well, it is what it is. I guess I can't really complain, though. It's still not a bad item for my composition, but just maybe not as good as it could be. All right, so again, I'm still feeling pretty comfortable. I've got 70 health. We're going to look to just econ up to level 9. I could go 9 right now, but I want to have more gold to roll for Kindred. So I'm just going to hold off on doing so right now. I can see that the other 2 players in the lobby have quite a bit of health. It's not like I can knock them out in 1 round. So I figure it makes more sense to play this a little bit more patiently. We've got a Nightbringers team comp, and then I think we have a Forgotten team comp for the last 2 here. So going to have to look to deal with them and chew through the fact that they both have pretty decent health bars. This is the Forgotten team comp, 6 Forgotten and a lot of nice synergies in the team composition. Unfortunately, Rel does not get our ult off there, and Varus gets hooked, so the fight RNG maybe not going quite as nice as I would have liked here, because anytime that Varus is not auto-attacking and getting his, getting that spell cast on the enemy team, it's not great. Rise, though, doing a lot of work, but not quite enough, and the Viego. Gonna hold my Lux in play. She needed 1 more auto attack to kill the Viego, but was never gonna kill the Draven. So not a huge difference in that fight. All right, again, more tank items, which are nice. There's a spear. There is an option to just take Spear of Shojin and put it on like Lux or Lulu. Like a Spear of Shojin on Lux would not be bad here with her getting the redeemed bonus. But I opt for the Shroud of Stillness because I do think that's the best option here. This late in the game, the Shroud will get extremely high value if I can just place it correctly. I should be able to Shroud like 2 or 3 units on the enemy team. Like shrouding the Viego before he jumps would be really nice. And I believe both teams are running Viegos. So that's part of the reason, like I was watching these comps, I was considering whether to like move into a different location, but I was like, I'm still kind of bunched up pretty well. And I think that helps me defend against these Viegos. Now I'm just going to need to look to position this Shroud of Stillness and see who I can put it on. So I was going to wait to see where I wanted to drop this, the advantage of this. I was like, all right, I'll put it on Rise because I want to get the Mordekaiser and I want to get that 3-star Lee Sin. So this is the Nightbringer team comp that we're up against. Again, they're kind of playing through the 3-star Lee Sin. And they actually have a Nightbringer spout on the Mordekaiser, which is pretty scary. But this comp doesn't seem to be that tanky. Unfortunately, we're not able to interrupt the Viego ult on Lulu. But Frontline is actually holding up here. Rise is doing a lot of work with his Shadow Blue buff. Look at him stunning the enemy team. Stun, stun, stun. So now it's down to just the Lee Sin and the Yasuo. And not quite enough. But I was like, I'm going to go to 9. I'm going to have gold to roll. I think I can beat that comp at level 9. So I think I opt to go to 9 here. Yep, because I don't want to lose any more health. And now we're just looking to try to find the Kindred. We'll toss in the Morgana, but I really want Kindred here. There we go. That wasn't painful at all. That was very easy to find that unit. So now we get the Death Protection. Now we get another level of Mystic. And in addition to this, we also get Ranger in play, which, like I said, is not huge in this team composition, but is something. So now I'm just rolling mostly to try to 2-star the Kindred. I think that's just about it. And as I said, I probably should have just been stacking Varuses throughout the game. By the way, Shroud gets great value even though I didn't position it. This is a ghost round against the Forgotten player, so even if I win, I won't deal any damage here. Let's see, what do we have to worry about here? Well, the Viego is actually doing a lot of work. The Viego was on the rise, and that's kind of a problem there. Also, Frontline starting to fall apart, but looks like we've got enough to win this round. So I'll take it. Getting in the 4 Mystic, I think, helped. Getting in the Kindred definitely helped. But unfortunately, it's a Ghost round, so I don't do any damage to that player, who definitely looks like they are the stronger of the 2 at this point. So I was like, that is a bit disappointing. All right, so now I have to pick something else, and I decide that I want the Shadow version of the Sunfire Cape. I feel like I can use another version of healing reduction in this comp. The Shadow version of Sunfire was also buffed in this patch. The burn effect, the self burn effect, only lasts for the first 8 seconds of the fight. And if I can put that on someone like maybe Rel, then she even has a shield to protect herself somewhat. So again, I'm really just rolling for the 2-star version of Kindred. That's kind of all I'm looking for. I only need one more, and then I can find. I only need one more, and then I can Nico it to get the 2-star version of the unit. So, all right, we are going to have to try to figure this out. Unfortunately, that person needs 2-star Rise, which is a little bit sad, and they've even got a Legionnaire spat on the Rise, so it'll cast more often. Hopefully, they won't find a Shadow Tier for Shadow Blue. All right, so I go ahead and make the swap here because I thought I was going to hit the other team comp, and whoops. I have just swapped my Shroud, so it hits absolutely nothing. That's not exactly what I wanted. Unfortunately, this person has also hit 2-star Viego, and that Viego is actually doing a lot of work, kind of soul stealing a lot of my team right now. And this fight is going horribly wrong. The Shroud of Stillness was not positioned correctly, and my comp just kind of gets blown up. Because that Viego, I mean, you can see Viego did the second most damage. And I was like, why? Why is it that I lose the ghost, or I win the ghost round and do no damage to the player, and then lose the actual round to, again, not deal any damage to the other player? That is, like I said, unfortunate. The third player got knocked out, so now it's down to just me and the forgotten player in the lobby, who's now on a win streak as well. If that ghost round had counted, I would have also interrupted their win streak, and we'd both be at like 25-ish health right now. But it is what it is. It just means I've got to win rounds. And the good news is, even if I lose this round, I should be able to get to the minion round. I don't think this person can do 25 damage to me, not on stage 6. So I'm going to try to swap to get that Shroud into position, and let's see if things go better now that we have the Shroud hitting, I don't know, like half the team. So the Shroud gets insane value right there. That's really good. However, my Rise is actually getting jumped on by the Viego, and that's not what I want. And then we also have some more fight RNG that we don't necessarily want over here. Just like the front line dies a little bit too fast, Viego is still killing more people on the other side of my team. And oh, I just needed the front line to hold up like 2 seconds more, and we could have won this fight. So it's close. It's definitely close, but not quite enough. So if I lose one more round, the game is over for sure. On stage 7, you're going to take 20 damage per loss. So I probably need to win twice, and this comp only needs to win one time to beat me. I need to continue trying to get good Shroud value, but I also probably need to swap around so that Viego is not doing as much. So I'm going to look to try to swap the Wolf over into a position where maybe Viego will focus on the Wolf first, and then also try to put Lulu next in line so that the Lulu is not that important of a unit to try and get grabbed. All right, we find a pretty useful item here. We find a what is this? Giant Slayer, which would be good against the tanks on that comp. I'll put it on the Kindred. And can I find the 2-star Kindred? Yes. Haha, there we go. So I'm just going to dump that on Kindred. And this item is best placed on Kindred because Kindred gets extra attack speed from Ranger trait, more opportunities to do bonus damage to high health targets on the enemy team. All right, so I'm going to continue to watch this, and I'm going to swap the Rise at the last second so that he is getting maximum Shroud value. And hey, that looks pretty good. We're going to Shroud, 2/3 of the enemy team. Definitely think it was a good choice to take that item off carousel. And this time the Viego is going on the Rise, who takes him out of the fight in terms of damage. But Rise, remember, does have a Guardian Angel, so he can't be converted. Can't have his soul stolen by Viego. And now that we have the 2-star version of Kindred, that does seem to be making a difference. Just a little bit of extra damage to help swing this fight. And we're going to be able to pop through the front lines right there. And now I'm just going to watch the other team. I want to watch to see where he positions. I'm not even bothering to roll. My team comp is totally fine. What am I going to get? Every single unit is 2-star. There's nothing to roll for. There's no units to upgrade here. So I'm just watching. Where are you repositioning? He just sold something in order to transfer items over. I didn't see quite what he sold here, but repositioned is trying to change his items. And I think this is good because this person's fiddling with their team comp and there's only 5 seconds left. They're clearly not going to have enough time to move around. I see. They wanted to get the death cap onto the Viego. So they switched the Viego at the very last second, but the Viego's not really pointed at anything too crucial. And I still get great value on the Shroud. All right, who's Viego going after? That's the most dangerous unit. Going after Trundle. Okay. I'm fine with that. Maybe not the greatest fight RNG for them. The Frozen Heart on that Viego is away from my carries, And Rise is doing work, gonna stun it, and hey, I think we've got this one. Looks like we're gonna win this one actually harder than we won the previous fight. So I just need to do 20 damage, boop, 25 damage, and that's a wrap. So again, this kind of wacky Varus plus Skirmishers, support Varus with Skirmishers slash Redeemed team composition slash Mystic. Guess I should mention Mystic because we were running 4 Mystic there. It's actually pretty strong. Again, you need very specific itemization to work, but it's pretty strong, and I had a lot of fun playing this. So I'm going to probably tinker around a little bit more with this because it's just such a unique build, and it's very entertaining to play this one. Anyway, until next time, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. Until next time, have a great week, and I'll see you guys again soon. Take care.